1. This happened last year, and lately it's been on my mind a lot, and I wanted to share it. So one day last year, my fiancé Michael and I were attempting to fix my car. The plastic shield on the bottom of the car had come loose and was dragging on the ground. So we're in his dad's driveway and have the front tires of the car up on ramps. We crawled onto the car with some zip ties to see if we could fix this plastic thing. Now, this is important to remember. Both Michael and I are fat, and not just fat, but physically out of shape. It took a lot of time and effort for us to get on the ground and shimmy under the car. While we're under the car trying to figure out where to zip tie this thing, we hear tires screeching. Then all these loud bangs and booms, obviously a pretty bad car wreck. But the sounds didn't stop. It kept getting louder and closer. Michael was laying on my right where the sounds were coming from. He looks over and then turns back and yells at me, "Get out!" And then he's gone. He just disappeared. The next thing I know, I'm standing next to the car that I was just under and made eye contact with the lady that was driving. At this point, time slowed down. I remembered her eyes wide with surprise when she saw me, and then she swerved away from me. I remember running to get further away from her, but I was never directly in the path of her car. In fact, I remember being scared when she swerved away from me that she might turn and hit Michael, because I had no idea where he was. Michael ended up far away from the car on the other side. It turns out the lady had lost control of the car while making a turn too fast and then panicked and kept accelerating. She totaled the first car she hit, which was the next-door neighbor's, and then hit their pickup. Crashed through the fence between the houses, hit my car, and finally Michael's dad's SUV. She was still accelerating when her bumper got caught on the SUV bumper. It was what stopped her from going into the house. Michael and I didn't have a scratch, nothing, not even a bruise or any sores and aches. But Michael and I aren't fit or in shape. There was no way we could have gotten out in time, because when Michael said he saw the car coming, it was already through the fence. That's maybe only 20 feet from the car we were under, and that lady was flying. When we talked about it later, we both realized we remember everything about the accident vividly, every detail, except getting out from under the car. No memory of turning, scooting, rolling, nothing. 1 second we're under there, next we're out, in completely different spots. I wasn't even out of breath. In fact, I was completely calm through the whole thing. But if we rolled or scooted out from under the car as fast as we needed to, we should have definitely had some scrapes at least. And maybe a little sore from moving faster than we have ever physically moved, but we're fine, and no memory of getting out. I think someone or something moved us, or maybe we did the first teleportation. Anyway, thanks to anyone who listened to the whole thing. Thank you. I'd like to know what you think about all this. 2. Backstory. About 2013, my, at the time, 3-year-old sister Lily began having an imaginary friend. She said his name was Barry. Me, age 12, and my brother, age 10, used to tease her about it at first, but slowly things became really weird. I remember one of the first weird things that happened was when Lily was sat at the table and was solving multiplication problems. I mean, just writing them out, not even taking the time to solve them. And not just 1 times 1. Some of the questions were like 50 times 14 times 78. Problems a 3-year-old wouldn't know. My brother calculated them and everyone was correct. So of course I asked her how she learned to solve them. She said Barry, and along the lines he's telling me what to write. That was when I realized maybe she wasn't making things up. This went on for a few months. The normal Lily talking to herself, knowing things she shouldn't be able to, and creepy things. Luckily enough, nothing aggressive, until one night at my mom's friend's house. My mom's friend has 3 daughters that live with her, Kayla, Alicia, and Samia. Kayla is the oldest and 2 years older than I was. Alicia is 4 years younger. Samia was my sister's age. The daughters Lily and me were in the basement playing like all the other times we had gone over there. Lily began playing and talking to herself. I knew why, but didn't say anything to the girls. Samia went over and began talking also. Alicia asked Samia who she was talking to. Lily said they were talking to Barry. Alicia said that must be your imaginary friend. The girls were surprised, but did not believe what she was saying. I said no, it's true, and told them about the stuff that had been happening at my house. Kayla got the idea to test to see if it was really real. The plan was to separate the girls and test them, I guess you can say. We put Lily upstairs with Alicia, and kept Samia with us. We had both of them draw what Barry looks like. This was low-key freaking me out, but I went along with it just because I was interested in seeing what my sister has been seeing this whole time. Once we were done, we had them come back downstairs. Both of them are really young, so of course their drawing skills were clearly not the best. Both of them had drawn a tall, shadowy figure with a blue shirt with black stripes and black pants. In the middle of the heads of both pictures, the girls had drawn a red dot on the head in the same place. I asked my sister what the red meant. She said she didn't know, but he was bleeding there. The girls started to believe what happened was real. We decided to do another test. We asked my sister if she would like to invite Barry to come play with them. Once Lily said Barry was here, we sent Alicia upstairs. We asked Lily where Barry was standing. Lily said that Barry was sitting in a chair that was in the corner. We then switched the girls and Samia pointed to the chair. This freaked us out and we decided to stop. We should have left that shit alone, but of course we didn't. Later, Lily and Samia went upstairs. One of them had the idea to ask Barry questions one-on-one. I was scared, but didn't want to look like a chicken, so I went along with it. We set up her mom's phone in the basement bedroom. First, Alicia went and asked questions, and nothing happened. She was fine. Kayla went next, and things were good for 3 minutes. Then we started hearing her scream. We opened the door and found her crying, her face red, like tomato red, and she was shaking, saying she felt hot. We made sure she was okay, and about 20 minutes later I went in. I sat on the bed and closed my eyes. I began asking if somebody was here. No answer. There was a tricycle in the room. I sat back down and asked Barry, if you are here, move it. I stared at it for however long. I got an uneasy feeling, kind of like when you're doing something bad and scared you're going to get caught. Then I heard the hangers in the closet move. I got up and ran out of the room. I wish this was all that happened, but later on, once we got the courage, we went back in the room and got the phone. We watched the video. Alicia's 5 minutes went by smoothly, but on Kayla's part, she looked down out of nowhere, and stayed like that until she started screaming. We forwarded the video to my part. It started off with me asking the questions and staring at the bike. But instead of me staring at it the whole time, I put my head down like Kayla did and looked straight up. My eyes were completely white, and I just sat there for at least 2 minutes completely still. I have no memory of this happening. I didn't feel anything but an uneasy feeling. I didn't look away from it at all. It was like I left my body and didn't even know it. I snapped out of it when the hangers in the closet moved. I was scared out of my mind. We showed our parents, but her mom just took the phone back and told us to stop playing. For the rest of the time, we just played upstairs and kept quiet. That night I tried to sleep, but couldn't. For the next couple of nights, worry and fear kept me up until I couldn't keep my eyes open. A couple weeks later, we went back to their house, and I asked if we could get the phone and send me the video to my tablet. Samia had said Barry told her to delete it. We ended up getting the phone. We couldn't find it. Lily said Samia deleted it. Until about 2 years ago, my sister kept seeing her friend. More things would happen, but not as bad as this. To this day, it still haunts me. But besides the people in the house and 3 close friends, I haven't told anybody. I believe that I was possessed, but I always thought her eyes turned black, and whatever it was it trying to possess Kayla? If anybody knows why, please let me know. 3. In 2002, I worked for a group of companies that had a large number of fast food restaurants, like 132 of them, in several states. I was hired as a project manager for a point-of-sale upgrade project in those restaurants that included upgrading the hardware. As part of my orientation and training, I was sent to the vendor that bundled the software and hardware for training on their systems, and to meet the project team on their end. I flew from a Midwest city to Philadelphia, and then had to drive to New Hope, Pennsylvania, with an arrival time near midnight. The vendor was excited to have me stay at a newly remodeled historic inn in New Hope. The inn is called the Logan Inn, and has been an active inn since 1727. I made sure to tell the vendor to make sure the inn knew that I was a late arrival, and to make sure there was someone there to check me in. Well, I get to the inn, and it's locked up tight. I checked out the rental car for comfort, thinking that it would be my bed for the night. After trying to relax, I decided to look for a drink to help with falling asleep. I walk into a pretty busy bar and order a drink. The bartender asked how I was doing, and I lamented the fact that I was going to be sleeping in a rental car that night. Well, luck was on my side that night, as the bartender said that half the staff from the inn was in the bar. A much relieved traveler decided to have a few with the staff, and after several drinks, they escorted me to the Logan Inn and got me settled in my room. They told me that there was only one other room occupied at the time, and it was on another floor on the opposite side of my room. This place had just been remodeled, and it was my understanding that it was a project of a prominent tree-trimming family member, that no expense was spared, including having period-correct furnishings. So I get settled in my room and go to sleep. It was early in the morning, maybe 3 a.m., when I was awoken by a huge bang that shook my room. I then heard a lot of loud noises that sounded like they were moving furniture across the floor. It went on for a bit, and I was annoyed that they would still be doing construction while guests were staying there. I eventually dozed off. I slept in since I had a late start due to a late arrival. When I was walking down the stairs in the morning, there was a guy working on a shadow box in the wall on the stairwell. The shadow box had period-correct dolls and a room furnished with dollhouse furniture. The dolls were all contorted, and the room was in dismay with the furniture disturbed. I asked the man what he was doing, and he said he was fixing the display. He said that it was inaccessible and sealed behind glass, and that the forces necessary to disrupt it that much were mind-boggling. He also pointed out that there were nails ripped out of the stairs, and he showed me. I mentioned hearing construction during the night, and he said there was nothing of the sort going on there. Apparently the Logan Inn was active during the Revolutionary War, and has got quite a reputation for being haunted. Whatever happened that night was not of this world, and I was very happy that the inn had many more rooms occupied during the rest of my stay, which was uneventful. 4. I'm 22 and I live in England in a very small village in Lincolnshire called Hayington. It's very rural. There are lots of woods, 3 separate large wooded areas in the village alone, complete with large surrounding fields and walking tracks, all that sort of thing. All my life I've been in the woods with nothing weird happening. Like I used to ride my bike through them when I was a kid, used to walk through them later in life smoking cigarettes and messing about with my friends, even walking my dogs. So the point is, I've spent a hell of a lot of time in these woods. Sometimes at night when I was 16 or 17, me and my friends would go make campfires and sit around smoking and listening to music by the fire, just having good times. Some of the happiest moments in my life have been in these woods, but the experience I want to share with you guys is not a happy one. One of my lifelong and closest friends is called Chris. I've known this boy since I was about 4, and I still consider him to be one of my closest and dearest friends. It would be very common for me to walk to his house when I was 18 to 20, and we would just play Call of Duty Zombies until the early hours of the a.m. One day, we were playing and chilling around until 3 a.m., and I was getting tired, so we decided to call it a day, and I left Chris about 10 minutes after packing my bag and saying goodbye to my bro. I was 20 at this point, so it would have been 2018, and for the past 5 years or so, the council where I live turns off all streetlights past midnight, so when I left Chrissy's house, I only had moonlight. This was in December as well, so the winter was in full flow ice on the pavements, pitch-black darkness of full works. Luckily, my house is only a 5 to 10 minute walk away, so I walked slowly to avoid slipping on some ice or stumbling up a curb. About halfway there is a footpath leading into one of the large wooded areas I mentioned earlier. I was walking past this footpath when I heard something that chilled me to the very core. My name. Not my abbreviated name or a nickname, like my full first, middle, and last name, and everything around me was very silent, so I heard this very clearly. Now to this day, I have no idea why I did this. Maybe I was interested, or maybe I was just feeling brave. But against my better judgment, I walked down the footpath and into the woods. I walked deep into the woods, following the sound. It was pitch black, so I turned the flashlight on my phone on and decided to light a cigarette. As soon as I lit the cigarette, I continued walking into the woods. I heard a loud cracking sound from behind me, like a twig being stepped on or something. I spun around to have a look, but there was nothing there. It was at this point I turned back around and felt something drag me to the floor. My cigarette and phone fell out of my hands on impact, and I felt winded, wheezing and gasping for air face down in the mud. I hear what I assumed to be crows of some sort or birds cawing. I don't know if that's the right term, but they were very loud. Panicked, I grabbed my phone and struggled to my feet. all the while still hearing my full name coming from deeper into the forest and the crows getting louder and louder. I decide that I need to get the hell out before something worse happens to me, so I try to run off, but after a few more steps I feel it again, like a hand on my ankle dragging me down. I have tripped up and fell over enough times in my life to know the difference. My phone screen was now cracked and broken and my flashlight had gone off. What I saw next haunts me. In the moonlight I could see very faint outlines moving, darting about from tree to tree, almost like moving shadows. I start to cry and I think to myself, I don't want to die here. I get up and I just charge, but once again I'm pulled down. And my full name was no longer being said. Instead, it had been replaced by laughter. My head was spinning and my ankle was clearly sprained or something. All the time I could just hear this laughter. The laughing enraged me. My tears turned to pure hatred towards whatever was laughing at me. I screamed not in fear but in anger, almost a maniacal scream, like a Viking warrior or something. As loud as I could into the darkness, the laughter stopped, and I saw the figures in the darkness creep into the cover of trees. I pulled myself up using a tree for support and hobbled towards the exit, which was now visible. I managed to get out of the woods and back onto the footpath. Exhausted, I hobbled my way back to the street. I turn around again, and in the moonlight, I can see the crows. So many crows circling above the trees. Then I hear it again, my full name coming from the woods. Whatever stupidity or bravery that took over me and made me investigate the first time was gone. I just went straight home, hobbling up the hill. This was easily the scariest thing that has ever happened to me, and I don't understand it whatsoever. It still confuses me to this day, so if anyone has any ideas, I would greatly appreciate it. It's safe to say I took the long way home from Chris's in future, bypassing the woods completely. Thank you for your time, and as I say, I would really appreciate any ideas or advice, or if anyone has had a similar experience. Thank you. 5. During the years of 2009 to 2012, when I was a young teen, we moved into my aunt's old house. For some background, my aunt is married to a pastor, and they lived there for some time before us. It should be known that her husband performed an exorcism in that very house. We didn't find that out until we moved out, incidentally. Anyways, so we had haunting since day one. Our beds weren't set up yet, so I had slept on an air mattress in our parents' room, and my brother on the couch in the living room. My mom noticed that the light had turned on in the closet. "Did any of you leave the light on?" she asked. None of us had. So she turned it off and went to bed. A while later, the light inexplicably turned itself back on. Okay, could have been faulty wiring or power, but it gets scarier throughout the years. My mom recalled one morning, wide-eyed and pale-faced, an event that had happened the night before. She'd seen the outline of a man, and he was painting in one of the alcoves in the hallway. When she tried to talk to him, he looked at her and threw what she described as spider webs at her. She then went back to bed without reacting, but was spooked the day later. I myself have memories of sitting at the computer in the living room. It was adjoined with the kitchen, and being a teen, I loved staying up until the sun would come out, chatting with my friends online. I would frequently feel something play with my hair, and would hear the fridge door open out of nowhere. Weirder still, I had sent my friend a message once with nothing but 2 quotation marks. Problem is, I was nowhere near the computer when that had happened, nor were any family members or pets. We still joke around about that to this day, trying not to be too spooked by it. My dad also reported seeing a shadow walking in the house when he was home alone. When he went inside to check, he saw no one, but a Shih Tzu was curled up in the corner shivering. There were a lot of smaller occurrences, like the printer turning itself on, as well as the computers. Another weird thing is that whenever I would record videos with my cousin on my laptop, the audio would become distorted. We'd suddenly be speaking slower. I chalked it up to it being a shitty laptop, but it didn't happen anywhere else. The worst thing, in my opinion, happened one night I was sleeping in bed with my mom. I loved watching the show Ghost Adventures, and as such, had been watching it before bed. Horrible idea in a haunted house, but I was 13 and dumb. Soon enough I began to feel spooked and changed the channel to watch George Lopez instead. I turned it on mute and slowly began to drift off. That's when my mom and I heard a nasty, shrill shriek from somewhere close by. We jolted up, and my mom, half asleep, asked me why I'd left Ghost Adventures on. It was still George Lopez, and very much on mute. We never found out the cause for that, and my mom claims she saw a small shadow walking on the floor after. So yeah, just figured I'd share some of my spookiest experiences. I'll never forget that house. I still dream about it all the time. What freaks me out the most is that when we were moving, I, an idiotic 14-year-old, decided to taunt the thing. I wouldn't doubt if I accidentally caused it to attach itself to me somehow. But the only experiences I still have are the dreams. Hey everybody, Hellfreezer here, and thank you very much for listening to 5 True Paranormal Stories, episode 218. And thank you very much to everybody who allowed me to use their stories in this video. Also, I'd like to give a special shout out to Reddit user Tenshikeki. I do hope I'm pronouncing that right. Thank you very much for letting us use your story, Tenshikeki. That was the last story about the haunted house with the computer and such. Okay, still not feeling 100%, so I'm going to keep the outro short for the next little while. So until next time, thank you very much for listening, and take very good care of yourself.